Meet Val Bodurtha, comedian and writer who published a novel at 17 and won a Young Writers Publication Contest and a Silver Benjamin Franklin Medal.
Having caught the comedy bug at a young age, Val did some training in Chicago and eventually returned to New York, where she began to help set up shows for other comedians.
Welcome to Scratch, Claw, Push, a podcast about artists clawing out a place for themselves in the world. I'm Billy Joe Cones.
And I'm Brendan Duke. Let's go. Welcome to the show, Miss Val Bodurtha.
Welcome.
Hello. Thank you so much for having me.
Welcome.
Awesome. So at the top of the show, we start every episode out with what we call the 60-second intro. Billy's going to cue you, and then you've got 60 seconds to tell us who you are and what you do. And then after that, we deep dive. Think about it like blackjack. You're trying to kind of go up to, but not over.
And just a general overview.
Just general, just think about I always say it's like your verbal resume, the one pager, not the full CV. We're saving that for later.
Gotcha.
So Billy,
all right. You ready?
Yeah.
All right, go.
What's up? My name is Val Bodurtha, which is a rough last name. I know. Kept it on purpose. I do stand up. I think it kind of starts things off on a good note, just explaining my name. But yeah, I've been doing stand-up for about 13 years now. I started as a teenager as part of Gotham Comedy Club has a teen showcase. So I started there when I was about 13, 14. And then I didn't write anything resembling a joke until I was about 19 or 20. By then I was in school in University of Chicago, where I ran the improv and sketch group off campus, which is sort of an offshoot that Bernie Sahlins, one of the founders of Second City, created. And after 4 years there, I stuck around Chicago. I worked for Poverty Alleviation Chicago in sort of funneled through Second City, doing production. And now I work at a podcast company called Lemonada Media. And I also write scripts on the side. I write a lot of half-hour comedy pilots. Oh, that's it. That's
all
it.
Right.
That's all. That's everything.
So you're stand-up comic. You also do, you write a lot. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
I know we checked out. I'm such a huge fan of McSweeney's. I got into McSweeney's over a decade ago, and I think it's fabulous. So when I saw your McSweeney's article, I was super excited about that.
Oh, thank you for checking it out.
Yeah.
I love McSweeney's too. They're really, really good.
Their stuff is just really funny. It's smart funny, right?
For sure. I feel like I always have a good time reading their stuff, and I feel like their voice is so cultivated. They do a really good job at that magazine. It also, fun fact, it took me 22 tries to get published.
Wow.
So if anyone's looking to try to get published in McSweeney's, and you get discouraged around the 21st try, give it one more.
So did you save all the rejection letters?
No.
Do they do that?
I'm not that much of a glutton for punishment. Though I love me some masochism. I am a stand-up after all. But yeah, no, you can always use something. You can always try to repurpose it or turn it into stand-up or something like that. I kind of believe overall you should kill your darlings, but you should remember where you buried the bodies or whatever and dig them up if you need to. So I don't know, maybe I'll go back and check out what I sent them at some point. And
Oh
see
man,
if
I'm stealing that quote, by the way.
Great.
So kill your darlings, but then Frankenstein them.
Yeah, you can Frankenstein them. Just remember where you buried them. That's all you really need. And then if it turns out you want to use them someday, just remember where you put them.
Yeah, I caught some of your stand up on, I want to say it was Instagram, and some of it was there was one joke in particular that almost made me burst out laughing and had my wife looking at what in the
An almost laugh. I get those a
No.
lot.
It was more it was just trying to, because my wife is working across the hall, so I don't want to
No, I got you.
She's talking about serious, stuff, and
it's suppressed laughter is a big deal. Thank you for saying that.
Oh no. Had I been in the club, it would have been a full guffaw. So
ooh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
So what he's saying is he needs the peer pressure.
Gotcha.
Well, I mean, sometimes there's certain things you kind of laugh at on your own, but also kind of you don't want to be rude if there's someone having a serious conversation next door and they're what, you feel like you're kind of rubbing it in their face that you're not working, but they are. and then you're just kind of like that motherfucker. Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, it is your work, right? So it's your job to do this,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, and it is my job similarly to watch funny videos when I should be working. Um,
I mean, that's
so
the
same
excuse.
thing.
My wife will be just like, "Why are you always on your phone?" It's like, well, I'm looking stuff up. I'm trying
It's
to like
research.
find guests, and yes, research.
Yeah, well, thank you for saying that. I've been trying to be better about uploading Instagram videos. You know, but it's a lot of editing work as well, as most comics know. Uh, so
So I want to go back. So you, in your intro, you talked about you started this when you were 13. Is that correct?
yeah, 13.
How did you even, I mean, when I was 13, I might kind of know what stand up is, but I mean, I would never have been brave enough at 13 to do anything. I'm not brave enough now to do it. So I'm just curious, like what inspired you to do that, or what opportunities made you think like, yeah, this is what I want to do?
Well, first of all, I disagree with the premise that you should try it at some point. You should. I think everybody has 5 minutes in them. The whole like I could never. I hear that a lot, especially from women, and they're like I could never.
It's not that I
Meanwhile,
could
no offense,
never.
granted, but men are kind of like, well, I've always kind of thought I could. So like, I encourage everybody, but especially women. I'm like, you should get up there because everybody's got five.
Well, I know you've dealt with this in your comedy, but men always have. I think the sense of false bravado or fake it till you make it is way more prevalent, with us than it
It's a
is with.
scientific fact that men are more overconfident than women for sure. And I'm not saying I could never. I'm just saying that's the one thing I haven't been brave enough to do yet.
Well, if you ever wanted to give it a try, let me know. I'd be happy to show you around some mics in New York. Brandon, that offer goes to you as well. Everybody who wants to can join. I'm very like,
I always fancy that I
more the
could
merrier.
I could do it, but I also kind of just then the realist side of me kicks in and goes, yeah, but everybody thinks that, like just because you can. And then problem is too is like when that realist side comes in is when I actually try to tell a joke and I usually screw it up and I go, see, yeah, that's why you don't go on stage with that.
So, but that's the whole premise of this podcast, isn't it? That everyone can pretty much do anything if they put their mind to it and they work hard enough, right? Like,
I love
so
that.
anyway, back to you at 13.
Yes.
How did you get the bravery to do that, the chutzpah?
Well, when you are a middle child of 4, you got to do something to stand out. I was always into you know what I think it really came down to was my whole family's musical theater people. We love musical theater. And both of my sisters can sing and dance really well, my older sisters. And I was never as good at that stuff. And so when we would do the school musical, I needed to find a way to sort of differentiate myself. And I remember I was in 7th grade and I was cast as Miss Hannigan in Annie. And I was having a lot of fun just like riffing. And, I wasn't the most, socially adept kid, but I felt very comfortable embodying this like middle aged, sexually frustrated woman. I think I was like 12 and I was like, she like her sexual frustration rules her like the way she sings. And I just was sort of into her as like a silly character who is very uninhibited as well. Like we love Carol Burnett, like we're obsessed. And so after that, I thought I wanted to be a comedic actor. I was like, that's a thing. And then I wanted to do that. And so I signed up for this like stand-up comedy class, thinking that would sort of be my way in. And it just sort of I stuck with the writing part of it much more than the performance part. Because turns out to be a performer, you have to like really love being on stage. Like, and it has to be the only thing you love. And I think for me, it's become a much more like rich. I've had a much more rich experience just writing and sitting at home with my laptop and sharing things with my various writers groups.
Where was this
And
class though when you took it? Where
it
was
was
that?
based out of Gotham Comedy Club. It's called Camp Kids and Comedy.
Hmm.
It's still running. You can check it out. Shout out Camp Kids and Comedy. And they sort of got me performing semi regularly. And then when I went off to college, I was able to continue, and ended up producing my own shows and putting things together. I opened for Gerard Carmichael, and now I run weekly shows in New York with the Bomb Shelter Comedy show guys, Jeff Cerulli and Matt Azark, and I feel like found my home in New York after 5 years in Chicago, and I'm really grateful for that because it's not easy starting over in a new city.
So were you a native New Yorker though?
I was born in Stamford, Connecticut,
Mm.
so I would commute in on the train on the Metro North. I got very friendly with like writing jokes on the Metro North, and I still feel like I need a train to be really creative. Yeah, so now I live in Queens.
Okay. And were you commuting by yourself at 13, or did you have people with you?
I think my parents took me in the beginning, but I was commuting at like 14, 15, I want to say.
Wow.
Um, I might have promised to take a cab and then taken the subway a couple times, but that is what it is.
New York kids are a different breed, man. Like, up here it'd be
Mm.
like, oh, no, no, we can't let our kid walk home from school. And like, parents are like, yeah, go. It's fine. Whatever.
Yeah, I definitely embraced that, and I wanted to be like that, like plucky kid on the subway bopping around to different shows. So,
So
I
what was
feel
yeah.
your
like
first? Oh, go on.
no. I was just say, like, I feel like New York kids probably retain that, the old Gen X spirit. No matter what generation you are, because you just need it as a survival skill in that city.
Hmm.
Just got to go out there and just do what you got to do, man, to get around.
Except they have phones now. But I'm
Yes.
but I'm curious what your first jokes were like at the age of 13. Like, what were you writing about?
Oh God. I feel like everything I wrote, I definitely liked dark humor from an early age. And I loved very I loved like Steve Martin and sort of the more silly humor as well. I think that comes naturally to me less. But I really enjoyed sort of like funny stories. I think there's crutches everybody leans on early on in stand up. Funny family stories. Oh my God, my mom is so overbearing. Like, there's wells that people return to for water quite often. I'd also say, like, your demographic information. So, talking about being a woman on stage, like, that's universal, at least to being 50%, like 50% of your audience in theory. So, you can use that if you want. So, most of my jokes early on were like funny things my parents said. Uh, I think I wrote quite a few jokes about random things. Like, I feel like I had a whole thing about, funny World War II facts. Like, it was very cutesy, would be the vibe.
It's like, oh, she's
Um,
so precocious.
yeah, it was yeah. And saying that now is like nails on a chalkboard to me, but I think that would be the best descriptor, unfortunately. So then I definitely wanted to differentiate myself from that when I got older. So I leaned a little bit more hard into like the blue comedy, trying to sort of not be a kid comic anymore. And now I've sort of relaxed. I've cooled down considerably.
Oh, that was actually one of the jokes that, like, I think the one where I was sold, and this is like, okay, I have to talk to her. The one that made me almost like laugh obnoxiously while my wife is working was talking about, like, men, how they're way overconfident in sex, and sometimes, like, when she's telling you to slap her, it's to wake her up.
Yep. Yeah.
And I was like, I need to talk to this girl. she's got she's got some chops.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, that one's just sort of like me noting what men are concerned about, which is like they're very concerned about height and hairline and things that frankly they can't control, so I don't judge them for. Like, all the guys I'm dating are like height, hairline, whatever, and they don't talk about things that they can control, like how good they are in bed. So that one's not like the bluest of the blue. Like, Val at 19 was like, holy shit. Like,
It's funny how the younger people are often the bluest. I played. You ever played the Game of Things,
no,
where
what
it's
is
like
that?
you put a card down. And it's like things you would find in a bunker, or things you would find in a blah blah blah. And one was like things you would find in a time capsule. And I was playing with all my cousins, and I'm the oldest, and then my youngest cousin at the table was 13, and all of the things in the time capsule, one of them was use condom, and you have to guess who said what. So
Oh,
if
that's
you're
fun.
if you go around the circle, you guess like, oh, I think you said this, and if you're right, then you get to guess another one. Nobody could guess her because everyone's like, oh my god, the Catholic schoolgirl who's 13 just said this.
Yeah,
Wow.
shock value. I
Yeah.
mean, that actually doesn't surprise me at all. The Catholic
I
school
was going to say the
girl is
Catholic schoolgirl
13.
might have been my first suspect.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, I know there were three of them. She and her two sisters were at the table. So yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
especially if like the S and used is comically backwards, or like the E, like a child wrote it.
Uh,
Yeah.
unless she's trying to fake you out, so she's going to be like, nah.
I mean, I guess, but she was pretty blue the whole time. So yeah, I think
It's
there's
like playing
some to
Cards
that.
Against Humanity, man. The stuff that sometimes it's the people you least suspect that will just drop the most savage answers.
Those are like my favorite games. The games where there's that one that's like I forget what it's called. It's comic something, but it's like stick figures, and
Hmm.
you have to put two down, and then you have to complete the joke by putting the last one down. So it's like a comic panel, and they're really dark. They're extremely dark. Like
I
that one.
gotta
That one's
get
super fun.
educated on fucked up board games.
Oh yeah,
I'm out
I
here
never.
playing Battleship. I don't know what board games
No,
you guys are playing. This is fun though.
I'll remember
no.
what it is and tell you. I'll find it.
Yeah, I remember like I was in a very mixed crowd once playing Cards Against Humanity, and like the lone white girl was just dropping like the stuff that was just leaning hard into the racism. And of course, like the table is just dying, like everybody's like laughing. So like it's almost that, even though there's like that embarrassed, like, oh my God, I can't believe someone actually put that. And she was cleaning up with it. And it was just like, wow, this girl is just giving zero fucks right now, and she's running away with this game. So
Well, I think it's important to give zero fucks for sure. That's like an
if you're gonna
important
be a comedian,
baseline.
that's a
Yeah.
superpower.
Yeah, and you get it out of your system. The one thing I will say is starting early, I really feel like I bombed so often early on that it's not that I like bombing now, but it's just that it doesn't really bother me as much as it might have if I'd started 2 years ago. So that's
You
pretty
think
nice.
it's just like it's like a rite of like doing that because based on like every comedian I've ever heard, they say it's just a rite of passage, and that you've just gotta have to kind of get it out of your system. Is it? Do you feel like starting so early is kind of like building that callus at a young age? Is like now you can kind of go out there and just does it kind of like steel you up in a way that like, okay, I've gone out there, I've gotten just you know whatever, I don't know, you get booed off the stage, or if you get used to the crickets or whatever, whatever form the dying takes, that you just kind of like now you can kind of go out there and you feel a little freer, maybe, or I don't know, how does that work?
Yeah, I mean, I've never been booed off the stage. Has not happened yet. First time for everything. Maybe this week. Who knows? Maybe it'll finally happen. But silence is every comic's worst nightmare. Silence is more power. Next time you want to heckle, which by the way, you should never heckle, but like next time you want to heckle, silence. If you really hate the comic on stage, give them nothing, and they'll go home thinking about it. But yeah, so I just was up against crickets often enough that, especially because like early on you suck. Everybody sucks when they first start out. You just don't know what you're doing. So it really helped to just have exposure to that, and then you learn to work through it, and then it's like going on dates and you're so scared you're going to get rejected. What if they don't like me? But then you go home and they say no, and it's like you move on. You move on with your life. What are you going to do? Not put yourself out there anymore?
Yeah.
So
it,
you build up a bit of a tough skin.
so have you ever kind of gone out there like where you started bombing but then you were able to save it, or vice versa, where you started off good and then you kind of like went sideways?
Definitely the latter. Definitely the latter. It can go sideways pretty quickly. Especially you never know what's going to be distracting to an audience. So if there's like an audience interruption, or if there's just one joke that doesn't land, something like that, it can be really distracting for the audience. Especially if they're a little drunk. In terms of winning an audience over, you definitely need to warm them up a little bit. I've definitely like started middle and then ended high. That's always been good. That's like a good trajectory to be on.
It,
Um,
it's
yeah.
interesting to hear you talk about distractions because as a fellow stage actor, like that's the thing is you don't never know when somebody's going to pass out in the audience because their blood sugar's low or they have a heart attack or a kid throws a chair at the stage or somebody vomits. That happened at one show. I was, like it was
Whoa.
a kid that threw up, but like all this
Wow.
stuff. So what's
A
what
kid
was
threw
it?
a chair at the stage and vomited.
No, at not the same time.
Okay.
Two different things.
I was like, what shows are you in?
I was in a high school children's, like it was a children's play, and we invited all the grade schools, and a kid threw up during it. And then I
Mm.
did another children's show as an adult, and there was a kid throwing his booster chair at the stage repeatedly, and we're like, can you make him stop, please? So anyway, I'm just curious if anything really weird has ever happened that you've been like, well, there goes that set.
I have had similar reactions like that, throwing things and vomiting, but it's because people are trashed. You kind of need to be ready for that a little bit. Some people go to a comedy show and they're like, time to get trashed and be loud. And they think that's how it works. They also, because there's so many crowd work clips online right now, everybody thinks that the whole point of a comedy show is to be a part of the show. And so we're getting a lot of people talking back now in this way that is a little unwelcome.
Has that gotten worse since the pandemic? Because I feel like you seem to see a lot more just people going out in public and just showing their ass so much more than ever before than before the pandemic. It was a problem before, but like I feel like since then I've heard of like so many more incidents of like people in public spaces just not knowing
going
how to
crazy.
fucking act.
Yeah, maybe it's a symptom of long COVID. Who knows? I feel like flight attendant, you know how like there were all those stories like flight attendants have to physically restrain people now. Like I saw that and I was like, I relate super hard to that, you know. I'm also responsible for speaking to a crowd control, and like they're you know, they're acting like this is Spirit Airlines, you know, this audience or that audience. Some of them are really well behaved, but it's been you know, you're always going to have a rough crowd. The other day we had a girl get up on stage. She got up out of her chair. She got up on stage and she said, "Who wants to hear me sing?" And I sort of told her to sit down and she wouldn't. And so then we told her to leave. And then after that, I don't remember quite what I said, but I was able to wrangle the crowd. And I was able to sort of, you know, I sort of just like ripped her a new one a little bit.
So that's when you go down into the audience and then you start heckling her.
Yeah. So, I mean, she had already left me. She was being like really disruptive. She was next to me and she was like maybe a solid 1.5 feet on me. I'm 5'3", and she was tall. She was really tall. And I was like, oh, I'm about to get the shit kicked out of me. But instead I was, you know, we told her to leave. Thank God she left. And we were able to just like wrangle the set, and I was able to turn it on her. And when you can turn the audience on the disruptor, that's when you have the best set of your life. When you can sort of make fun of them, because you're just calling out what people are thinking about. So you should never ignore it. You should always call it out.
Have you gotten better at kind of like reading the room as you've been doing it over the years, where you can kind of like almost feel when someone's about to get antsy or, you know, get a little talkative?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think it's like if you allow yourself to do it, it's just to be constantly watching for reference points in the moments leading up to your set. A couple weeks ago, we had this group of like young Jewish professionals coming to the show, and I'm Jewish, so I was really excited. I was like, oh, I'm about to have like a really hot set. Like I think I'm like the only Jew in the lineup too, so like this is gonna go great. And it was like 25 young Jewish people, and show was going well. And then someone in the back, who I don't think was part of the group, he comes down. I think he was another comic. He comes down and he has this Tupperware of fish, and he opens up the Tupperware, and it's like the set right before mine, or like two before mine, and it stinks up there. It was the smelliest fish I had ever smelled in my entire life. And it's a small room where I perform. Like everybody was getting it, right? So then he eats the fish and then he leaves, right? So nobody addressed it on stage. Not a single person was like, what the fuck is going on? So I got up and I think I was like, all right, hello, like my Jewish friends, like good to see you, blah, blah, blah. I was so excited. House full of Jews. I'm like, this is going to be great. And then one of you brought the motherfucking gefilte fish. And then everybody was like, it just felt like the tension was released because we could laugh about that awful smell. It could be a smell. It could be something as disruptive or non-disruptive as a smell. But as long as you address it. And then I explained what had happened. As I was like, we got, someone terrorized us and then left.
I was about to say that's the like, it's like chemical warfare.
It was crazy. I think he wanted to get on the lineup too. I was like, what? Comics are delusional. Everything I've been telling you could be totally fake. That's how delusional comics are.
My teacher, my acting teacher, used to always, like admonish us, like anytime something happens, you have to address it because it's a gift. It makes everything so much more alive in the moment, right? Like if you drop something or if someone says their line wrong or whatever, like you have to, and that's why I think all actors should take improv, really.
Mm.
But yeah, like even in stand up, especially because then you only have that, right? Like you have your set and you have how to connect it to the people you're in front of.
Yeah, it's always good to be aware of the room you're in and what's on people's minds leading up to your set. And if you can just rip off a few quick jokes about, gefilte fish or whatever it is, like you're probably you're in better shape for your set. So I always allow myself some wiggle room at the top of my sets. I also been making a concentrated effort the past year to get better at crowd work. Because it's not as hard as it looks. And if you can get really good at it, you can win over just about any audience. Like that's the secret ingredient that helps people really come to your side very quickly. And I feel it myself. Like when I see a comic who's really good at crowd work, I just feel safe in their hands.
I mean, even if they're laughing at your expense sometimes. Like I went to a show once that was just a general open mic in Minnesota, and my friend and I, he kind of looks, he's an academic and he looks like an academic, and so the comic that came up made a crack about him and me being on a date. We weren't, but made a crack about it and made a
Classic.
crack about the way he looked, and he was crying. He was crying because he was laughing so freaking hard at what they just said about him, and he was just, like loving it. And I think it's hard to know because, like in real life, sometimes if you go too far with someone, it can really hurt, and like you can. So, like so far as roasting goes, what do you think the guidelines are, or do you think there just aren't guidelines, and it's sometimes you're taking a risk?
I think you're always taking a risk just by being on stage. Not taking a risk on stage looks like pulling out a sheet of paper and reading from it, which is not fun for anyone, Um, I'm not a huge roast comic because I think it's more my natural tendency to either make fun of myself or make fun of a situation. I feel like I feel safer in that realm for sure. I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings. If an audience member is being a dick, obviously all that goes out the window and the audience wants you to roast them. It's like an anti-hero situation. You're doing something bad, but for a good reason. But it's hard to pull off. And it's hard to know what's cool to make fun of and what is sort of petty. Yeah, I guess it's always a risk is what I would say. I don't think anything's off limits. I do believe in the offensiveness funny ratio, which is where, if you're targeting an audience member, they're going to feel automatically some amount of discomfort. So your friend, the guy who looked a little nerdy, just by virtue of the comic being like you, he's going to feel some automatic discomfort just by being singled out. So it's the comic's job to be so funny that your friend overcomes that discomfort and thinks that whatever jokes made at his expense are worth it. So that goes for anything. I mean, if a comic is making a joke about women or Jews or something like that, like it's up to them to make me feel comfortable with being singled out and being, talked about and generalized about. And if it's funny enough, I'm on board. Like if you're really funny, you can make the group you're sort of talking about laugh the hardest. So that's, sort of the goal. And especially when it comes to audience members. If you can roast an audience member well, they will love you.
Like I saw a clip recently where a guy, he did like a weird thing where he kind of like you see him call out a guy in the crowd, and as he's kind of bringing him into this joke that could be because he was joking about he was making a joke about like blackface, and he was saying like most of the time like in like 99% of everything it's bad, but you go look at all those Navy SEAL commercials and look at what they're wearing, and it's like. And then he talks to the black guy, says like, come on, if you and me are both going on a mission, I'm out here looking, like me, I'm glowing in the night sun. You're going to probably want to put some stuff on my face just so we both don't get shot. Yeah. It's a great bit. And he's bringing it, but in the way, like in the sense, like, as he ties him in, he's like kind of throwing little compliments as he's doing it. So he's working it in there. So like it's like a really kind of interesting way to watch someone do crowd work like this time. Cause it's kind of like, every time you think he's kind of going to that place, he kind of spins it around and kind of pays the guy a compliment. While it's really kind of just like really deft watching someone kind of do that kind of work. And you were talking about, especially when you're going into those places like that are really uncomfortable, which can be where you find your best stuff, but can also be where you crash if you don't do it right.
Yeah, because if you do it wrong, then and if you don't pass the offensiveness funny test, then you're just saying something offensive for no reason. You know, the joke is not justified, and then you just sound like a dick.
Yeah,
Because
it's that punching up rather than punching down thing, right?
Yeah, I think it's sort of like having a good reason to say anything is more what it comes down to. So I kind of think it's more similar to how I talked about how I did a lot of blue humor as a crutch, you know, talking about sex on stage constantly. Like it was a little unnecessary. I needed to have it's fine to do blue humor in my opinion, but you got to have a good reason to go there. And if you have a good reason, it's like, you know, hell yeah, go for it.
What's a good reason?
To have like an interesting, insightful, nuanced perspective on something, to make the audience think differently about something.
Okay. Do you have a favorite joke? Like just like a general joke?
Oh, of all time?
Yeah. I mean, like, you know, there's that whole aristocrats thing that, you know, became a thing. But like I'm just curious, like if someone just were to be like, hey, it's a getting to know you thing, everyone's just gonna tell their favorite joke, what would be, and it can be something super simple. It doesn't have to be like whatever. I'm just curious if you have a favorite one.
Yeah, I think let me think. I'm a huge fan of Pete Holmes. I think he's doing some really interesting stuff right now. I think his telemarketers bit is pure silliness. I could never do it. Only he can do it. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Pete Holmes.
He does a lot of like superhero stuff too, right? I think
Yeah, I mean,
am I thinking about
he's Batman from College Humor.
yeah,
for sure.
he did it. Yeah, he's done some Batmans. There's one that's he did a riff like on one of the end scenes of Dark Knight, where I guess, you know, they do the big reveal of like, you know, who the real villain is, and he does that, and it's, I don't want to spoil it if you've never seen it, but it's just kind of like getting that blue humor, because it's like he's doing it in the context of like a superhero movie, and it gets like really, really blue to the point where like it's like where you're just gonna like just burn, like, oh my god, like he's, yeah, it's like Batman, no. But no, I get it. Yeah, he does. So anyway, yes, I do know who he is. So no, please continue.
Well, I will send you his stand-up. He has this one bit about how, in his words, you know, we all hate telemarketers, but telemarketers are a gift from the Lord because they can't hang up. And then he does this sort of act out of a crazy interaction he had with a telemarketer. And I can't tell you why I find it so hilarious. All I know is that I listen to it maybe once every 2 weeks or so. I love him. Anything that gets stuck in my head, I'm gonna love. Yeah, I don't know. George Carlin's, it's bullshit and it's bad for you. You know, like all that. And like Jim Gaffigan stuff about weddings always gets. I've been being invited to a lot of weddings right now, so it feels so good to have some like Jim Gaffigan catchphrases. He's like, you know, we're the people who brought the fork, and you know, just these little observations about normal everyday things like weddings or telemarketers. Those are really the bits that I'm repeating in my head constantly.
Okay.
What about you guys? Give me some of your favorite jokes.
Well, I mean, my favorite joke is a knock knock joke.
Ooh.
And I can do it. I can actually do it on here.
I would love to do it.
All right. So, knock knock. No, wait. So no,
do I have to say it?
You guys have to.
I think you have to say knock knock.
What? Yeah,
I think usually.
I forget. See, I forget how. This is why I don't do jokes ever, because
this is your favorite joke. You say?
Yeah, I know, but I've forgotten how knock knock jokes work. Sorry.
I definitely have a favorite, but I again, I'm not good at telling it, because like I think the first time I read it, I didn't hear someone actually say it, and that makes a huge difference in this particular joke. I have another one that's a lot easier to just tell.
Okay, well, let me start over. So, knock knock.
Who's there?
Interrupting starfish.
Interrupting starfish who? Yeah.
Which is, I mean, interrupting cow is one thing. It's my favorite to introduce children to this.
Do you put your hand on someone's face when you do it in person?
Yes. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. But I did it at an audition once, and I asked permission. I'm like, can I touch you? And they're like, yes. Why are you asking if you can touch me for this joke? Because they asked me to tell a joke. And I'm like, okay, but it's my favorite joke. And I have to ask if I can touch you. So, okay. But yes, I do. And I used to teach it to all my cousins and lots of children, people's children. Yeah. And then I have a blonde joke because I'm a natural blonde. So there's a blonde joke I really like too.
There's some
Yeah.
great blonde jokes.
Yeah.
One of my favorites is this guy that's out on a golf course, and he's just out there playing his game with his buddy, and suddenly this funeral procession comes by, and then just the guy stops like right in the middle of what he's doing, takes off his hat and just puts it over his heart and just waits till it goes by. And his buddy's like, man, that's like, or they're friends, but they're not close friends. But he's like, oh man, that's like the most decent, respectful thing I've ever seen. And he's like, well, it's the least I can do. We were married for 20 years.
It's a good joke.
Nice.
So I mean, it's like that one, and then they have another one, but it's like it's harder to pull off because I feel like it's like if you don't do it just right, it's really easy to screw it up. Like,
I mean,
you would need to be like a good actor to pull it off, because it definitely has like it's when you read it, you're hearing it perfect in your head. But if you hear someone tell it, it's very easy to screw it up. So do I have to explain it, or could I just like email this?
That just make it premium content that's behind a paywall for your listeners.
Yeah.
If you're listening right now, they're going to set up a paywall, and the joke is behind the paywall.
That'll be on the I guess subscribe to the Patreon. You get that as the
just mail a check, and we will call you.
That's
and
right.
Tell you the joke. We take turns doing it.
Your own personal stand-up via FaceTime.
Ooh, we can just record it and have a line where people call in and they get to hear it.
It'd be like Cameo, but for stand-up.
Yes.
Not bad.
So getting into your writing, you actually did a mockumentary about Paul Giamatti.
Yes.
You got him to be in it, no less.
Yes.
Wow. How did you get him to be in it?
That's a great question. It was my senior year, and I was on campus, and I got a million texts. Everybody knew that I was running this campaign with my two best friends to get Paul Giamatti his own wax statue at Madame Tussauds. And it was kind of like, everything I posted about, everything I talked about. And so I'm on campus, and I get like 10 texts being like, Val, Paul is on campus right now. And I was like, I gotta go. So I canceled the brunch date I was about to go on, and I just scoped out the whole campus until I found him. And I walked up to him and I said, hi, Mr. Giamatti. My name is Val. I'm one of the co-founders to get you your own wax statue at Madame Tussauds of that movement. And he gave me this big hug. So we start chatting, and he tells me how he saw the early flyers for the campaign around Brooklyn. And then he was on the Stephen Colbert show, and they did a segment on it. So I knew that he knew about us for sure. And then I asked him to be in the movie as a little cameo, and he said yes. And you can watch it online. It's Wax Paul Now. If you just search that, you'll find it. And you can sign our petition, which we are still running. And we're still fighting a good fight. They have yet to give him. I mean, we've just been tweeting ever since he got his Oscar nomination. We've just been tweeting like, what about now? What about now? How about now? And hopefully if he gets the Oscar, we're going to be like, I'm so. How about now? So we're kind of latently running this campaign. Like, his Oscar campaign is one thing, but his wax statue campaign is really the thing that
I think you really got it with the URL. That's like top notch right there.
waxpaulnow.com.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
So at what point did the filming the movement and making the mockumentary come along? Was that like kind of after, or were you just kind of like at the minute it gets going, okay, we should do something with this?
It took a while. Because again, we kind of just started it, as like a fun activity. This is the kind of shit my friends and I get up to. I don't know if you guys do this kind of thing with your friends, but because Madame Tussauds, they're pretty much at the end of their tour, they're like, you can suggest a celebrity to be in Waxified next. And we had seen all these like YouTubers and people who paid for their own wax statues. And we were like, this is lame. So we were like, why don't we suggest someone who really deserves it? Who's like a prolific working everyman who like you could run into on the subway. And like, most of us have at this point. And so we suggested Paul Giamatti. They say that they're going to get back to you within 24 hours. And we didn't hear back. So we were like, oh, okay, time to ratchet this up to like a crazy level. So we sent them like a bunch of emails. We started a Facebook, we started a Twitter, and it was kind of just like something fun you do at Red Lobster with your friends. But then we continued to run it for like months and months and months. Got a little bit of press coverage, like BuzzFeed and Forbes and stuff like that. Did some pieces on us. We got a mention in the New York Times. And then he was on the Colbert Show, late Show with Stephen Colbert, and Madame Tussauds reached out to us for the first time after ignoring us for so long. And they were like, okay, come, we'll do an event in Paul's honor. And we were like, that's great. Do you want to spend that budget on a statue instead? And they were like, no, we'll do an event in his honor. And we were like, okay. So we go to the event, and that's when we were like, let's bring some cameras. Time to document, because this whole thing is really silly.
Well, I love the
fantastic.
mockumentary format because I was a big fan of like all the waiting for Guffman and Best in Show and all that. So it's like this, and you did it right. Like there's a lot of there's like a lot of really like jokes that are just kind of there. Like it's you did it like where you're not explaining, you just hang it out there. If you get it, you get it. If you don't, you don't. Which I was like, yeah, this is the stuff.
Thank you. I appreciate you guys watching and obviously supporting the movement and signing the petition if you have not already. Very important. Madame Tussauds told us that if we could get 500K signatures, they'd give us the statue. Just for reference, March for Our Lives got like 250 signatures. So they wanted us to double one of the most successful change.org campaigns of all time.
I'm curious, do you know what the current number is?
For the petition?
Yeah.
It's like 3,000.
Oh, wow.
But maybe with the Oscar campaign, things will change.
Hey.
We just needed to go viral, right?
That's right. Maybe this is the thing right here.
You never know.
We're gonna manifest it.
I just think he deserves it. I always have, and he was lovely to work with. I'll say that.
I was want to know like how it's like. Did it live up to your expectations?
We were waiting for him outside the shoot, and we see this car pull up, and then it's like this fancy car, and nobody gets out, and we're kind of like, is that him? And we're sort of like pretending not to look, and okay, everybody just play cool, so, and then he just pops up right behind us. He walked up from the subway. He was like, hey guys. We were like, oh, hi.
It's like the most Paul Giamatti shit ever.
It was really, he lives and breathes Paul Giamatti. So
I bet he could blend in if he wanted to. I bet he can just.
Oh yeah. I mean, yeah, he was really lovely to work with though. He was like, did it in like one take. He was great. We got what we needed. So keep your eyes peeled if you're watching the movie.
So I'm curious. So I know that you're like kind of gearing towards you want to write a TV show, and you really are into the writing a lot. With all of this, with your stand-up career, with the writing, how do you motivate yourself with the jokes? I mean, it seems you said you run a stand-up show now, right? Does that help you motivate yourself? Have you found that starting projects or creating your own thing is the way to go? Or did you ever have trouble motivating yourself before?
That's a good question. I feel like it's probably the same for everybody who would be answering this. Like, you kind of need to build it into your schedule for sure. And forcing yourself to go on stage is just one way to keep yourself limber. And, if I know that I'm about to be on stage, like, I should prepare something. And it's funny, I've kind of slipped off because you can do crowd work, and like that sort of scratches the itch without necessarily meaning you have to sit down and put pen to paper. So I've been trying to be better about writing scripts in particular, because I think scripts are sort of a more lasting product, even if stand-up is sort of more community oriented. Like, I love my stand-up community. Like, they're kind of some of my best friends. And so it's hard. It's like you have to structure your time very well. But I'm part of a writers group, and I try to set like deadlines for myself internally. And if you just sort of keep doing that, then, and if you have a lot of people you like to work with, I like to write with a lot of people, various people. So as long as you're hanging with them, someone's going to get a stupid idea to get Paul his own wax statue at Madame Tussauds, and then before you know it, you're off to the races. So surrounding yourself with people who do it too is a great way to stay motivated. But yeah, no, it's good to set goals as well.
Is there anybody in your life who, not in competition even, but just who you go, I don't know how you do all this. Okay, I'm going to get off my butt and go do this now.
It's so funny. None of my friends really do everything that I do, and they also do a bunch more things that I don't do. So it's hard to compare yourself, because one of my friends writes novels and does stand up or does something. There's so many different ways to produce writing, or they do funny newsletters or something like that. So all of my friends are hustlers for sure, and I have some friends who do like 5 shows a night in New York, which is like crazy. So anyone who's doing that, I am very impressed by. I just did 3 shows a night in one night in Houston, and that was a lot of fun. That was sort of like a bit of a record for me. It was fun to tick that off. Yeah, I guess anybody who's doing anything with intention and with purpose, like recording a podcast right now, that's on a Tuesday, so it's when we're doing it. So I guess you guys too. I think this is a pretty cool thing, and yeah.
Thank you.
And I don't feel in competition with anyone because in New York, there's a lot of stage space. There's a lot of stage time to go around, and you kind of need other people.
Yeah,
Do
sorry. I was going to say quick that I think it's hard when you have some people, maybe not you, but I feel like some people are inspired by other people who do a lot, and other people find that intimidating and it almost demotivates them. So it's kind of nice to hear you say that you're just inspired by all of it.
No, you need them, and I need my friends to produce scripts so that I can read their scripts, so that when I produce scripts, I can send them scripts to read.
quid pro quo.
Exactly. Because my mom is tired of it. She's tired of reading my scripts, you guys.
We need to get your mom her own statue, or like a gold statue to thank her for.
We've got one of those, but we'll get her something else. We'll
What would
got
she
one of those on
want?
the landing. Yeah.
What would she want?
My mom likes to knit. You can get her some nice yarn.
Okay. All right.
No, my mom's also a writer as well.
Is that what started you down this path, do you think?
My mom's a journalist, so it's kind of adjacent. But I don't think I ever quite necessarily had the journalism bug myself. I way prefer, like, real life is so depressing. I like fake life.
Yeah. I like reading about, how to tell your unicorn's cheating on you. That's the stuff I like.
For sure. Like a McSweeney's.
Yep.
Instead of like a profile of an famous economist. I don't know. What do they write about in the news? I'm really revealing the fact that I don't know what the news is about.
I feel like that's one of those professions. It's like a calling. You just gotta want to do it. And it's funny that, I mean, I thought I wanted to do it, but then I remembered in college, I was trying to work for the school newspaper and the school magazine, just diving in. And I think after about like 2 weeks of hanging around the people that were doing the newspaper, I was like, I don't think this is for me. But yeah, like that, it's just funny to see like the like those professions like that. Like there's certain ones, and I feel like almost like, do you feel like the stand-up comedy thing? Because I feel like it takes such a, even like with actors, like I admire certain professions where you have to just put yourself out there in a way that, like, if it goes bad, it can go really bad. It's not going to be like, okay, if I'm a writer, I'm going to go submit this thing, and it's going to be like, if I get rejected, no one ever has to know. It's between me and the publisher. But if you're an actor or a comedian, if you're going to flame out, you're going to do it in front of people, and it's going to hurt.
Yeah. Something interesting is at what date do you invite someone to see your show? Because if you eat shit on stage in front of someone who, in theory, you want to remain attracted to you, you're just playing with fire, because I know, like, whenever I see someone bomb, like, it's just not the most attractive thing in the world. So you just got to be prepared for whatever happens when you invite someone you're interested in seeing to a show. My parents can come to any show. Like, they've seen me eat shit before. they know what it's like. But yeah, you have to be careful who you let in to that. And also, I think publishing videos too is kind of interesting. Like, I published that video about, like, if you're in bed with her and she says you should slap her, sometimes it's to keep her awake. And my boss commented like, "OMG, Val." I was like, "Oh no."
What is
You
your
know what? I'm okay with this.
your day job?
Yes, I work. I'm a director of operations for a podcast company.
Oh, okay. Oh, right.
Well,
Yes.
that's not that bad. It's not like, you're doing
I work for the FBI.
right.
At least
I work for the
creative
FBI, and I tell a
companies.
bunch of state secrets on stage.
Yeah, but it's a joke, so
Yes,
it's totally
I'm joking.
fine. No, at least
I have to ask, does it like, are you ever just like, is it hard? Like when, I'm sure because of that thing, like going into a date and then they find out you're a comedian if they don't already know, or is that like, are some people like really way more into it and other people like, nope, nope, nope.
Anyone who is into it at first ceases to be with time, which makes sense. I don't date other comedians. It's a hard life, and you spend a lot of time in front of drunk crowds, and you're generally jaded and like a little emotionally, whatever. maybe I shouldn't be advertising myself as this right now, at least. Yeah, so I feel like sometimes I'll go, oh, you know what keeps happening is I was going out with guys and they'd be like, don't put me in your stand up. And I would always be like, you are not interesting enough to be in do something really crazy and then we can talk. But you like ordering a bottle of wine, like I'm just not that impressed. I'm sorry. A photo of you in a Halloween costume on your profile, like, it's very, I don't know.
Have you ever dated someone who you suspected might be a little out there on purpose to get material?
No, because I think at the end of the day, people do want to get laid. So like there is that fudging the numbers a little bit. But I would love that. I would love if someone who was crazy to me reached out to me and was like, hey, just so you know, that was to give you stand up. Like I would pay you a royalty fee for sure. Like I would pay if I got a good joke out of it. Hell yeah.
I think that's a potential movie. If you play that right, where it's like someone starts dating the other just to be like a muse in a weird kind of like bass backwards way, you could have a lot of fun with that.
I would watch that.
Okay, noted.
For sure.
I will keep that in mind. I feel like stand-up muse is perhaps a less lofty aspiration than like regular muse.
But it's funny, like nowadays,
like you can't get someone to paint you, so you have to get me like telling dick jokes about you on stage. Like that's your next best option.
I don't know. People are weird though now, because like you look at all the, especially like with the Jerry Springer back in the day, and then now social media, the stuff that people will do to get noticed is fucking crazy.
It's true.
Yeah. No, I mean it is a form of immortality. Me telling a dick joke about you on stage.
Or someone dating Taylor Swift and then getting a song written about them,
For sure, which I have also done.
Wait, you dated Taylor Swift and she wrote a song about you?
I did indeed. I am Travis Kelce.
Wait, which song was it?
It was. Oh my God, Val, name a single Taylor Swift. I feel like I'm betraying my gender right now. Uh-oh, not a Swiftie. You guys forgive me, right?
So you have to burn your white woman card.
Picture to burn. There we go. That's a Taylor Swift song.
Hey.
Nailed it.
Yes. So someone put out a meme, like, said like, coming in 2024, Travis Kelce sucks, the next Taylor Swift album. Not that I'm wishing anything bad on them. I'm not one of those people.
Is Taylor Swift? No, she's not. I'm not going to say that about her. I was like, it's kind of like when John Mayer was dating everybody and everyone's just like, don't date John Mayer. But, I think, I don't know. We're going down the rabbit hole, but I'm like, Taylor gets a bad rap. She's got a lot of talent. So.
Yeah. I mean, it's, John Mayer always came across like great guitar player. His music, I'm kind of so on, hit or miss for me, but he's definitely one of those people. I feel like when you watch him in an interview, you just go, God, you just he's just one of those guys. Like he's not trying to sound like a douche, but he just can't help it. At least the interviews I've seen, he's like he made up. I don't know, maybe he's not that bad a guy. Maybe he is. I've never met him. Maybe he's wonderful, but like every interview I see him in, you just go, ugh.
Well, if any listeners know John Mayer, please confirm or deny whether or not he is a dick.
Also, if he
Correct.
doesn't already have his own wax statue, Brandon and I could start our campaign.
You certainly could. Speaking of that thing earlier where you were like, do you see competition when you see other people trying? If you started an adjacent wax statue movement for someone other than Paul Giamatti, I'd murder you both.
Okay.
Just saying. So all that positivity before goes out the fucking window.
I respect that.
Thank you. It's for Paul. It's not for me. One for all and one for Paul. Okay. So.
Nice.
So with the writing, I digress. I want to know what type of TV show you aspire to write. Do you have like, because there's so many great comic shows out there. There's so many. Like, is there a show that is like your ideal epitome style of show?
Yeah, for sure. I love genre parody. That was always the thing that I was into the most. Most of the scripts that I've written or that I've placed in competitions or whatever have all been genre parody in one way or another. So I love like The Boys on Amazon or Barry on HBO or one of those where it's like dark and kind of fucked up, but really, really funny at the end of the day. Yeah, I'm a sucker for Adult Swim as well, which I try to hide, but I love it.
Do you like I Think You Should Leave?
Yeah, for sure. I don't think I could write it, but I love it. I think they're really, really talented.
It's so Tim's voice. Like, I don't know that anybody could write that same way.
But yeah, just that sort of like this goofiness, the unhinged quality. I think I prefer it to be a little bit more grounded and like aiming at something. But I definitely I love to absorb absurdist comedy as well. Like I said, like Steve Martin was one of my early favorites. Yeah. So
are there other examples? Because I can't think of any right now, but other examples of that genre of the what did you say it was again? The genre parody?
Genre parody?
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess just anything that's sort of satirizing its own genre. It can go really goofy. Like there's an Adult Swim show called like CSI San Diego SUV Special Ops or something like that. Like it's some ridiculous, and the whole thing is like a CSI SVU spoof. It stars like Paul Scheer, June Diane Raphael. It's from a million years ago, but it's super funny. Anything that's just sending up a genre, I'm a huge fan of. So like, and this goes back to early. I mean, anything that parodies. I mean, individual episodes of Rick and Morty parody stuff, though some people dislike that they do that. Anything that's taking the tropes of a genre and just really messing with it. Zombieland the movie is great. I have a zombie pilot that's sending up the genre.
That's like back when I don't know if you ever watched it, but like Eek the Cat when it was on TV, they were constantly like that was an early one where they would like I was just old enough that I could start to get a lot of the adult references, like when I was in junior high, early high school maybe, and it was like there's one where they're literally throwing up like Shaft, or they did a reference to Clockwork Orange in it. And I'm like, this is a kid's cartoon. They're referencing all these things. So I'm like, oh, for the parents, of course. But that genre, would you consider then like What We Do in the Shadows or Reno 911? Like those would be
for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, they rely on you having knowledge of like in What We Do in the Shadows' case, vampires. You have to know the thing about they can't go out in the day. You have to know there's so many tropes about them being like over sexualized, for example, and the show really plays with that. Anything that takes your expectations and subverts them, I think is sort of the main through line of what I love. So for me, when I write a half-hour pilot, I usually will take a genre and find a way to put it on its head. So the serial killer genre, the zombie genre. I'm working on something right now about cults, where you tell like a silly story within a framework that is usually quite serious.
Cool. Yeah, well, I hope to see something you've put out there someday.
Oh, well, thank you. I mean, Wax Paul Now is that's also genre parody. We're making fun of like hard hitting, like activism. Like we're making fun of people who like go out and create change, and like the change in our case is a Paul Giamatti wax statue.
It's very important.
It is.
Got to start somewhere.
Yeah, absolutely.
Be the Paul Giamatti statue you want to see in the world.
I think we all could be. I think that's the most important thing.
T-shirts.
Hey.
Oh, and I love fantasy. Anything parodying fantasy, I'm a huge fan of. Or sci-fi.
You have a favorite?
I guess just generally like sketches on SNL or something like that. There's this crazy show on Netflix called Maniac that they have this whole sequence that takes place in a fantasy world. I'm a huge fan of that. I write some stand-up about Lord of the Rings. Like I just love Lord of the Rings.
Mm. I feel like sci-fi is would probably be a little easier to parody than fantasy, I would think. But then again, I've got Spaceballs in my head there, so
Spaceballs is a great example. Yeah.
I so wish that Mel Brooks was at least like 20 years younger so he could go back and do like the actual, what he would talk about, Spaceballs 2, The Search for More Money, and then, take on a lot of the modern stuff now.
Yeah. Well, he did History of the World Part 2, which I did not watch, full disclosure. But
I haven't either, but as I so want to, because I just feel like, especially when you see like, especially the Star Wars sequel trilogy and just everything around that, like that is so ripe for parody. And
yeah, it's hard to parody the more recent Star Wars movies because they are in and of themselves unfunny parodies of themselves. Of
that
the
may be the
earlier
most accurate
movies.
description I've ever heard of the sequel trilogy.
I'm giving away how I feel about 7, 8, 9. But
trust me, I could do an entire podcast about how much I dislike the sequels.
Do you guys want to throw out what we have done already and just talk about the Star Wars sequels?
We'll save that for another episode. When we just
go.
we just bag on them, because I think when you've got those like, they had like such a good cast of young actors, and just when it becomes very obvious they had like no plan whatsoever.
No,
that's when they
no planning.
And I was just like, are you fucking shitting me? It's like,
I think we should definitely go on a rant and then put that behind the paywall, because I'm sure that everybody is like super excited to hear that.
Our thoughts on Star Wars behind the paywall.
Yep. My wife has forbidden me to ever mention The Last Jedi ever again. Like if those words even come out of my mouth, she's like, no. And it's like, that's how bad it is. Like,
that's me and my friends. They don't want to hear it anymore, which is why I'm on a podcast. I'm here to tell everybody else about it.
Well, yes, there's actually, you can actually make money off that stuff. There's people who do that online, and they, whole YouTube channels devoted to, bagging on Star Wars. But no, not today.
I don't think I have angry YouTuber in me. I think I don't have the.
I could do it, but I feel like I shouldn't indulge that part of my personality. There's enough of that out there. I don't want to feed that beast. So,
gotcha.
Unless I'm getting paid.
I love Star Wars original trilogy, and also I'll put it out there, the prequels. I love the prequels.
Yes,
I think that they're charming.
Good idea, poor, not great execution. I know Billy's not a fan of any of that stuff.
I like the original Star Wars trilogy. I'm not like super into the universe. It's fine. It just is.
Billy's in the Chris Burke school of genre movies.
What, horror?
No, like we had a guest that we used to interview that, like, I think he hates like anything big franchisey stuff.
Oh, I mean, yes, I do prefer like more like A24 and lots of really bad horror. I like watching bad horror movies, even though they're terrible.
I love a bad horror movie.
Yeah,
I have limited patience for those. Some because I've seen too many of them, and I've seen some that are just so bad that I like it. They're so bad that they will piss you off. Like, how is this getting made? And then and I it's like, and I can't get shit out there. So, but it's
one word.
I mean, I've seen some that are just really like astoundingly bad.
Lamageddon.
I have not even heard of that one.
Lamageddon is ridiculous. Avalanche Sharks, also Sharks of the Corn, Shark Exorcist. My old roommate and I watch like a horror movie every week. And he's very into these terrible monster movies, and we watched a lot of Giallo too and stuff, but a lot of early 80s stuff, but so many bad he really likes sharks. So anything with the shark we watch, basically.
Shark movies are excellent. I'm a huge fan of
I
shark
feel
movies.
like
Birdemic.
horror is like the one
Birdemic.
genre that you can really like. You can just go completely off the rails and still somehow find a way to make it work.
Mm-hmm.
And like sometimes you like, or like Chris Mim, like, or you can go intentionally make it kind of cheesy and bad,
Mm-hmm.
and it's still and it can still work.
Yeah, there's so much suspension of disbelief. I think it's a great genre. It's one of my favorite genres, actually.
The like monster
Horror.
movie horror. Oh,
I mean,
just horror in
all of it.
general.
I love all of it. I love like very legitimate like A24 horror. I love classic horror, and I love Birdemic. I love all of it.
So when I said Shark Exorcist, do you think that was just poorly, like that was poorly titled, right?
No, I think know what the movie's about, which is what I think the function of a movie title is
But when
to,
like
Legally
Birdemic-
Blonde, Shark Exorcist.
But wouldn't you do Sharkstercist?
That's I'm not sure if I would. I also am realizing that it's unclear whether or not are we performing an exorcism on a shark, or is a shark the exorcist?
The shark was possessed by a dead nun or something.
A dead shark. A
that wanted,
different
that
shark
wanted
possessed the
revenge.
shark and made it a shark.
So does the shark come out of water and vomit pea soup onto the boat?
No, and the CGI in that movie is it's up there with that one and Sharks of the Corn. So terrible, so bad, but
I'm a
delightful.
fan of all of it.
Yeah.
Well, I will be writing Shark Exorcist too, so please stay tuned for that. I'm very excited.
Just write them. Hi, I need the rights now. They're mine.
I would love that.
Yeah.
So I'd like to buy them. I got some leftover change in my pocket.
Here is 2 nickels and a piece of lint. Thanks. Probably, honestly, a bobby pin, because there's always bobby pins around everywhere. Oh.
Oh, nice.
I wasn't
now
lying.
afford the rights to Shark Exorcist.
Now you can afford the rights. Here, I hand that to you. It's yours. There you go.
Nice.
Yep.
Good stuff.
Yep.
It's been awesome if Val had one and then just been able to like pull it back up out of the frame.
Oh, we didn't plan it well.
Next time.
Next time. So as we have already gone over the hour mark, tell the people where they can find you online if they want to at you.
Yeah. I mean, you can just go to waxpaulnow.com. Honestly, that's the most important thing. I don't care what you think about my comedy. Just help me with this other thing. No, my Instagram handle is Val Bodurtha NYC, BODURTHA. I know it's rough. It's part of who I am. And my website is valbodurtha.com. You can check it out. You can also follow Bomb Shelter Comedy Show on Instagram and check us out if you're ever in New York. Where it's a free comedy show, and it's a fun time.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you so much for coming out, and we'll be watching.
Thank you, guys. Thank you so much for having me on the show. I had such a fun time.
You're welcome.
That will be all for this episode. To keep up with the show, follow us on social media at Scratch Claw Push. If social media isn't your thing, you can contact us at scratchclawpush@gmail.com. To learn more about the show, visit scratchclawpush.com. This podcast has been a Carcutta Media production. This recording, or any portion thereof, may not be reproduced or used in any manner whatsoever without the express written permission of the publisher, except for the use of brief quotations in a review. Copyright 2024 by Carcutta Media LLC, all rights reserved.